it does help to understand how to use this language. And it does help to understand what a person's text says about them and what your text with the person you're texting with says about your relationship.
Another episode of Girls Gotta Eat.
Welcome back.
I'm still laughing that you said the way I told you I was going to sit here was creepy.
It was, Raina just made a move on me. First time in 4.5 years. Because sometimes when we just, listen, we have a really hot episode for you today and it's longer interview and it's so great. So we were like, we'll just keep the intro short and we don't need to film it. And Raina, when we don't film it, she sits at a different place. And I was like, do you want to sit in that chair? And she was like, you know, I like to sit across. What did you say?
You know, I like to sit over here and look at you.
It was very weird. She wasn't joking. That was dead serious.
Because on the couch, I'm more like next to you.
It was like
here,
a whisper.
Directly across.
It was like a whisper. Like, I just want to look at you. Like in A Star Is Born. I just want to get another look at you.
I'm trying to ASMR turn you on.
Oh my God. It doesn't work, Raina. I turn you on.
I turned you on.
Guys, it's tour week. We will be on tour this week in Portland, Seattle, and Vancouver. Love these cities. Can't wait to be there.
We're so excited to see you guys on the road. And we are going to be out of here for like 2 weeks.
We'll talk about it.
All right.
Get me the fuck out.
Okay, guys, this episode is brought to you by BetterHelp Therapy Online. If you want to live a more empowered life, therapy can get you there. Visit betterhelp.com/GGE to get 10% off your first month. So getting to know yourself can be a lifelong process, especially because we are always growing and changing. You have life events that completely change you as a person, and it always helps to talk it out. Therapy is all about deepening your self-awareness and understanding because sometimes we don't know why we act a certain way, what we want, and then we talk through things and can help flesh out those things for ourselves. BetterHelp connects you with a licensed therapist who can take you on that journey of self-discovery from wherever you are. So there's a million reasons to go to therapy. If you want to unload stress, if you need emotional healing, help with anxiety and depression, relationship issues with all kinds of people in your life, whether it is a romantic partner, a friend, a family member, even boundary issues at work. There's so many reasons to go. If you're thinking of starting therapy, you can give BetterHelp a try. They make it so easy. It is entirely online, designed to be convenient, flexible, and suited to your schedule. You just fill out a brief questionnaire and get matched with a licensed therapist, and you can switch therapists anytime for no additional charge. I highly recommend checking it out, no matter what it is you want to address in your life. And you can discover your potential with BetterHelp. Visit betterhelp.com/GGE today to get 10% off your first month. That is BetterHelp, HELP.com/GGE. Okay, we're leaving New York for like 2 weeks, like Sunday. We got a lot of stuff coming up.
Okay, so we would be back as this airs on the 28th. Cindy Hesseltine's 70th was the 27th. So that was yesterday. So obviously we're recording this before we go, but we're going to Dewey Beach, Rehoboth Beach, doing a little birthday for her, kind of low key, 20, 25 person semi-surprise.
That you've planned.
That I've had to plan. And because I am the backbone of my family and my dad.
He ruined the surprise.
I don't even understand what went down. I was shook to my core. So like early March, I wanted to do a big party, have like a big surprise party. So I'm on the group chat with my dad, my brother, and my Aunt Kathy, trying to figure out what we're going to do. I need guest lists. I need emails. I'm in touch with Big Fish Catering. Big Fish is our restaurant catering go-to, best restaurants in Delaware. Wanted to do it at this place called Salt Air and just kind of like trying to figure out how to do it with the amount of people we wanted. I'm like stressing. I'm like getting catering, like quotes, getting capacity.
Your parents are retired and we have a full-time job.
On top of everything else.
Everybody else is retired on this text chain.
And so I had said so clearly, like, we're going to do a big surprise party. I'm getting quotes from everybody, yada, yada, for days. And hold on. No, you know what? I got to read the text. It's going to have more effect.
Honestly, the verbiage with what?
This is this like, what are men situation. Okay. So I'm going back and forth. I'm like 6 p.m. The Cove with the Big Fish is 70 people. So we'll see how many we have. Once I get an idea of the number, I'll reach out to Big Fish. We could also maybe get Salt Air. I'm going back and forth. My dad goes, don't invite anyone until we all talk. Maybe it's just our core solstice group. That's their best friends minus so-and-so, but we'll talk. And Aunt Kathy jumps in. I thought this was a surprise. And I go, Dad, you asked her? Keep in mind days of me trying to coordinate. Days. My dad said, I've been talking to her for about a year now about this. And then I'm busy now. Call you later.
He's like, in case you thought I ruined the surprise recently, it was never a surprise. I told her a year ago, and I'm busy.
You guys have been playing. Why am I involved?
So you're
why
like,
am I doing this?
I'm busy. Both of you are retired.
I'm trying to run 2 companies and get dick and all the other stuff we have going on. You guys, Mother Azul. And so I just do back, like, we'll talk about this emoji today. My favorite emoji is the squiggly, it's red cheeks, squiggly face, eyes. Like, it's a what the fuck, it's a fucked up face. It's my favorite emoji. I just wrote that back. Matt jumps in. Haha, what a mess.
He doesn't volunteer to help either.
And then Dad goes, Mom's request has been a small group that are closest to her. And he like lists out all these people. I go, what about Jen? I already invited Jen, which is what, and he goes, yeah, for sure. What? And I said, so I'm going to figure out a plan for about 20 people. And this is not a surprise. Cool. And Matt goes, why not just include Mom in the group chat at this point? And I go, ha. And Dad goes, 20 sounds perfect. Not a total surprise, but a little suspense.
What I would also, he asked you if you wanted to include me. The suspense is whether or not I come.
Yes, it says if Rita or one of your friends wanted to come, Mom would love it.
I'm surprised your mom hasn't texted me to invite me yet. A little suspense. I'm busy.
And I wrote, LOL. No, I said, suspense, LOL. I'm just glad you and Mom planned this for a year, but didn't bring it up until now. And Matt goes, yeah, talk about suspense. Dad's been planning for a year. Like, how did this happen?
If your dad has been planning this for a year with your mom knowing about it, why didn't they just plan this? Why are you planning this? We are launching a new company. Guys, save your money. We're launching a new company. We have a current company. And yes, the dick is a full-time job also.
The dick is
I was like, where am I? I said the dick, and I was like, where am I going with this?
Where am I going with this? You got there.
You're like, I don't know, I'm going with this. But I'll get there.
The dick is a full-time job, Raina Greenberg, everybody. New merch, Bella put it on the list.
The dick is a full-time job.
It's so like masculine energy. Like pussy's a full-time job. You know what I mean?
You know what I forgot to bring up with you last week? Because we talked about soft launching like for so long in the previous episode. I just like loved our talk. This guy soft launched me. He wore one of our pieces of merch in an Instagram video, and he soft launched, and I forgot to bring it up last week.
Well, I'm glad you brought it up now.
Yeah.
And I'm in those comments.
You really are. Your comment was funnier than mine.
No, yeah, I love that. Is a great way to. Okay, also like I got really emotional because I thought he bought the merch on his own accord, and
Ashley was like, "I want that." That's
I was
so
like, "I want that." No, really, like I would love that if a guy that I was like into or casually talking to, whatever, like bought a piece of our merch like on his own accord, and like it would melt my heart.
Totally.
So any guys that are listening that are trying to get in my pants, but you would send it to him. And I took it back. I was like, not as sweet.
But I did take it to FedEx on my own.
You did?
I put it in a box by myself.
Oh,
yeah.
It was a sample? It was a free sample.
It was a free sample.
If you're listening.
But the merch, the shipping was a lot of money. It cost me $30 to send that.
Why did you just send it from the...
Because it was old stock. He wanted this like one piece of expired merch.
Oh my God.
He wanted the You're on Notice pants.
Okay, so that is, yeah.
So he soft launched, and I love that. I thought that was very funny. But anyway, speaking of how busy we are, we'll be on the road this week. We'll see you guys. We are so excited to get to Portland, Seattle, Vancouver. all those shows except for the second show in Portland is sold out. There might be a couple tickets left to the second show in Portland. If you guys are coming, you know, we liked all of your stories. Send us crazy dating stories about yourself or the people that you're coming with. Roast your man that you're bringing, roast your friends. Send all that to stories@girlsgotteatpodcast.com. All the upcoming shows, send us, just make the subject line the city that you're coming to. And I think that's it. Tickets are still available to Kansas City and St. Louis, couple in Detroit and Indianapolis and Toronto. And that's it.
So get those tickets. But we do have plenty left. Like in Kansas City, Detroit, those are going to be big theater shows. We really want you guys to come. We're planning them. We're getting everything planned out now. They're going to be sick. And yeah, just anything you have funny to share about who you're coming with, send us emails. Okay, Raina, had something else. So we were talking about my dad. I have a DM about your dad. Someone sent this to me. This killed me. This girl DM'd me and she said she was re-listening to old episodes. So May 2021, she goes, can we talk about how Raina's dad pulled a Kanye before Kanye moved in next door to his ex-wife? I thought that was so funny.
If you guys don't know, my dad was living in Dallas. He split up from his horrible wife, and he moved back to Pittsburgh, and he literally moved in next door to my mom. He lives a less than a 2-minute walk. I can see her front door from his front door. She is just like, I could spit on her house from his house. He moved in right next door to my mom, and she hates it. She couldn't hate it more.
I mean, but also, like, we're not condoning Kanye's behavior. He is just, it's not okay the way he's been acting, but that goes without saying, but it's very funny. And your mom doesn't feel threatened.
No, my mom's with my stepdad for like 25 years. My mom just acts like my dad is so thirsty for her. Like, my dad has been remarried since her. She's been married to somebody for 25 years, and she's like, why is your dad so obsessed with me? Like, she acts like he's going to try to, like, get back together. But like, he's going to show up. No, I've like never seen two people that are so mismatched. I'm like, how did you find each other? I don't get it.
I have this like secret dream they get back together one day. No offense to your mom's husband, but I just like you I don't know, like
no offense to Chip.
Somehow, no offense to Chip and his statement shirts. Bella, you don't know that like Chip used to come to shows and stuff. Every time his shirt was loud, his shirt filled the green room. He would wear a statement shirt every time.
It's funny because I haven't heard Chip talk since like 1998. Like he just doesn't talk. He's very quiet.
No offense to Chip, but like I don't know. Like, okay, Raina, let me ask you: if your parents came out and they were like,
they came out,
we realized we was together, we were back in love, and they were like, we're getting back together. Like, what would you do? Can you even imagine it?
I'm trying to like let this like wash over me. Like how crazy that would be.
I think it'd be such good content for us.
It would be great for the show. Yeah. I feel like my brother and I are just like, you guys just do whatever you want.
Yeah, of course. It's not like you have dreams of your family being reunited, but I had a girlfriend in college, and when we were in college, her parents would come and they would set up the tailgate, and I loved them so much. And they were separated or probably divorced, I think. And they co-parented and were friends for years while they were divorced, dated other people, and then got remarried like not too long ago, like probably 15 years after they separated.
It's always so fascinating to me when people like find their way back to each other. I think you see that a lot, like when people get divorced and they get back together with like their high school ex or something. They just like reconnect with somebody from so many like, years ago. And I mean, it makes sense. You had kids with somebody. It would make my life easier.
I don't know. I'm hoping. Here's hoping. Then we get Bill on the podcast. He's like, I always loved her.
She hates it. My dad does that a lot. My dad frequently, we were at my brother's college football banquet, like parents' dinner, and my dad stood up in front of my stepdad and clinked his glass, and he said that we're getting back together.
As a joke.
In front of 100 people and my stepdad. Yeah.
Did your mom even laugh? Or was she like,
she does not think it's funny.
Like eye rolling.
And my mom's like, Chip does not think this is funny. Chip does not laugh at this. And I'm like, everyone else is laughing at this.
I love your dad for that. What an icon. He gets up and he's like, Myrna and I are getting back together. And it's just crickets. You and Arlen are like, what the fuck?
Also, this is like a football banquet. Half the people don't even know my parents. They're like, are we allowed to laugh? Like, it's not friends and family, it's strangers. And my dad has stood up and clinked the glass to get everyone's attention. And everyone's giving speeches about their kids. And my dad's like, Myrna and I are getting back together.
He's doing a bit. Your dad drops the mic, like walks off. But then didn't your mom... wheel out a cake for your dad. Like your
my
mom
favorite story of all
still
time.
has a thing for him too. I will not.
Someday we'll tell the whole story of my brother's rehearsal dinner. It'll be the whole episode. It was crazy. My mom bought a cake for my dad's 70th birthday.
Your dad, not her husband, her ex-husband.
Yeah, my dad's birthday wasn't for 6 weeks. This was like May 19th. My dad's birthday is June 28th. And I'll tell you whose birthdays are before that. Mine. my sister-in-law's brother. And my stepdad's birthday.
Insane. Her husband.
Yes, her own husband's birthday.
It feels like the ultimate troll. Like, what happened there? Was your mom mad at Chip and she was like, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to get a cake for my ex-husband.
And then at a really nice restaurant full of staff, tons of staff, could not express enough how much staff there is to wait on you. My mom made my stepdad wheel the cake out for my dad.
Are you kidding? No. For a birthday that's after his.
For a birthday that also is in 6 weeks. It doesn't make any sense.
And then your dad stuff, he was like, we are getting back together.
My dad's wife was there. It was crazy.
I'm so obsessed with the story. Oh my God.
Talking about at a rehearsal dinner for other people, talking about somebody's birthday that's in 6 weeks, it makes no sense. It's like when I tell people I'm from Pittsburgh and they're like, oh my gosh, I've been to Philly before. And I'm like, those places are 5 hours away from each other.
Totally. I mean, I just love shit like this. Like, if I go to any sort of like social function and some shit doesn't go down like that, like I'm upset. Like I would just be sitting there like, oh, this is insane. Like just talking shit at the table with whoever.
I was like holding on to the table like for dear life. I was like couldn't catch my breath. I was laughing so hard.
Oh my God. All right, guys. Well, we have such a fun episode today. When we're talking about texting, we could have talked about it forever.
Let's talk about it. Let's talk about tell me what you coined it this morning and I'll tell you
what.
Exacerbate gate.
Oh, exacerbate. Exacerbate gate. Last week on the episode, I said exacerbate. And I did not know I was wrong. And I remember editing back and I was like, good big word, Ashley. Like literally did not know. And you told me someone DM'd you about it. It was like, does Ashley realize she said exacerbate? And I was like, what about it?
And then yesterday you were like sure that I was wrong. Bobby told you.
Well, once you guys said it, I was like, oh, okay. I could picture it in my head. And I was like, it's definitely not a word that rhymes with masturbate. And yes, it's exacerbate. So that doesn't happen to me a lot. They used to happen to Rain a lot more, like all the time. Wrong word usage or mispronouncing a word. So I'm proud of this one. This is my big one.
Exacerbate. We're gonna make March exacerbate.
Exacerbate.
We're gonna be like, what does that mean?
But yes, we're talking about texting today. I wanted to say one thing. We did the episode last week on weaponized incompetence. You guys loved it. We knew you would. And I just wanted to say something that I wish I would have said in the episode of how much this happens in the workplace. And again, we're a dating podcast, but we talk about the workplace a lot. So I just wanted to say that because I saw a lot of the comments being like, this happens to me at work. And so, you know, articles and studies will show you that women tend to get fucked over more when it comes to this stuff. And it's something that predominantly men do to women in the workplace. So again, I just saw a lot of commentary. It was something that I had on my notes, and I was remiss in not mentioning. But yes, so just wanted to say that because that's a huge theme.
And we do plan to do more like career type episodes this year. But also, yeah, I'm glad that you said, because when I think about it, when I think about like common gripes of all of my girlfriends at their jobs, it's like I'm doing the job of 5 people and I never say no, and so people just pile on top of me, and it's like I don't know how to like step back from it essentially. And it's like if you ever did, people would just do it. I don't think you hear men say that as often. Like I feel like I'm doing the job of 5 people, and that people act like they can't do anything because I'm around and they know that I'm going to be good at it.
Yeah,
I think that it's a common gripe of a lot of women in the workplace. So yeah, I'm glad that you brought that up. It comes up a lot. Okay, guys, March is National Nutrition Month, and HelloFresh makes it easy to choose delicious and nutritious meals. We want to thank HelloFresh, America's #1 meal kit, for supporting Girls Gotta Eat. Go to HelloFresh.com/GGE60 and use the code GGE60 for 60% off plus free shipping. I mean, Ashley and I say it all the time. Anything that you make at home for yourself is going to be better for you, more nutritionally valuable than anything you pick up at a store or a restaurant. And also, it's just more fun. I love cooking HelloFresh meals. It's so fresh, it's pre-portioned. The recipes are simple and easy to follow with the ingredient lists. Everything is really customizable. So if you want to select meals and then swap out the proteins or sides or add a protein to a veggie dish, you can do that. There's up to 40 weekly recipes to choose from. There's everything you could want if you want stuff that's good for kids, vegetarians, date night, if you just want to learn how to cook for yourself. All those things. Really great. Everything I've ever had at HelloFresh is really fantastic. I'm just looking at what they have right now. They have creamy Dijon dill chicken, soy glazed salmon with rice. They have this mushroom and chive risotto. All these things sound amazing. They have lunches for you. Also, Ashley made me this incredible pesto mozzarella and tomato sandwich for lunch. It was unbelievable. And everything online is really easy to customize as well if you need to skip a week or change your address. I just love it. It's really fun and it's really nutritionally valuable. So right now we're going to give you guys a discount. You can go to hellofresh.com/GGE60 and use the code GGE60 for 60% off plus free shipping.
I just tell you how funny this is. We were talking about our families in last week's episode, and I'm looking at a full page text message from your brother. Your brother responded to my Instagram story about last week's episode about like weaponized incompetence. And we said so many times, like, our brothers are so not like this. We're surrounded by so many men. So Matt said, you know, I've never said any of these things. I would never do any of these things. And he said, I'm so glad you guys covered this topic. And I love that your brother's like such like a thoughtful response to this.
My brother does say though, like I remember one time he said to me, this was like over the holidays or whatever it was. He was like, "Is there any better glass of water than like the one mom brings to you?" Like, there's just something about it. Like I don't know what it is. Like I am so capable. I am high functioning. So are you. But going home and just when my mom does stuff for me, I love it. I mean, I do stuff for her too, and like I feel like I really helped out when I lived there during quarantine. I cooked dinner all the time, and I was like helping them so much. But I love being on the couch and being like, "Mom, can you refill my water?"
Moms don't count. That's why you get a mom so that they can bring, so you can leave cups around the house.
I don't want to be a mom.
Mom, what's in the fridge? Like it's the only time I would yell at somebody to just tell me what's 2 feet away from me.
But that's why moms get tired. Yeah. And they feel like the household is on their back.
Weaponizing competence against your mom. I feel like your mom's so like nurturing and loving. I gotta get it in where I can. My mom,
she loves to do
that.
it. Yeah. You know, she loves to refill our waters. Okay, so we wanted to joint rec this show. It's on Hulu. It's called Life and Beth, and Amy Schumer stars in it. I think she also wrote and directed it. I don't know if she wrote every episode, but it's her show totally from her brain, and we loved it. I had recommended to you. I've loved every time she's acted in something. I love Trainwreck. I also like that. Was it I Feel Pretty? I didn't love the movie so much, but I loved her in it. I loved Inside Amy Schumer. I mean, I'm just a fan of her as an actress and a writer, and I love the show so much, and it's all comedians that act in it, and so many people we knew had cameos, and I guess spoilers ahead on what it's about. You'll get the gist pretty soon, but anyway, if you want to skip ahead and just watch it on your own without knowing anything, her mom unexpectedly passes away, and they had a really complicated relationship. And so that's kind of the main storyline, and like what the choices she decides to make. She lives in New York City. She's a wine sales rep, and she kind of moves out to Long Island where she grew up, and her friends are there. And Michael Cera plays the male lead, and I'm obsessed with Michael Cera, everything he's ever done ever since Superbad. And I just loved it. And I told you to watch it, and you loved it too.
I couldn't have loved it more. And I think you see these plot lines a lot. You know, girl in New York City leaves it behind to move home and finds that like a local guy. And I thought it was the best done version of that storyline. I thought she was so great. Michael Cera is so funny. Everybody, there's so many people that have been on our show that make cameos in it. It's just so well cast. Mm-hmm. I loved it. I can't recommend it enough. I never wanted it to end. I just thought it was really so fantastic.
Yeah.
So.
It's like got that sarcastic, dry awkwardness. I love the music. Like they play like hardcore rap music, and then they'll play very like folksy music. And I just loved it in every way.
I know. I think the writing is really smart. I think the jokes, like I want to rewatch it.
Yes.
I think there's like so many really funny like one-liners, just lines that you're just like, wait, what did they just say? The way it's delivered is so good.
I don't laugh out loud a ton. I think things are funny watching TV. I laugh all day, every day when I'm with people. But like, yeah, I mean, I laugh more than the average person, I think, but watching TV, not as much. So I found myself like laughing out loud, not the whole time. There's also more serious moments too. It's probably what's it technically called? A dramedy.
It's like a dark comedy.
Comedy, dramedy.
Yeah.
But I laughed out loud really hard a few times.
You know what I wanted more of was Krista Stefano's character.
Krista Stefano was on screen for 10 seconds.
I know, and I wanted more of it because the shirt he chose, he plays like a boyfriend of the mom's for like 10 seconds.
Yeah.
And it's so good. I want more of Chris.
And because it's a Hulu original, you get the whole season. So I binged it over 2 nights, last Friday and Saturday night. Big weekend for me. And, I did that
cute stuff.
I
You
actually
did more
did
stuff this weekend than I did.
I
A
did
lot
stuff
more.
and then I came home and watched it. You know, I stayed up till 3 a.m. And so you don't have to wait because it's a Hulu original. So they're like, here's the whole season.
Unlike the Dropout, they're just doing once a week. It's slowly killing me.
Is it part of another network? That's what I realized. I feel like we shit on Hulu a lot, but when they only give you a few episodes or 1 episode a week, it's because it's on like FX or Freeform or something.
Oh, I thought there was a Hulu original. I don't know. We'll double check. Don't DM us. Okay. We'll figure it out. We'll figure it out on our own.
Also, don't DM us if you don't like our Rex. I've been meaning to say this. You're not going to like everything that we like. It's just called having different tastes and preferences in life.
You and I don't like
Every
the same
once in a
stuff
while,
always.
someone will
Yeah.
message me that they don't like a show we recommended. They don't like a restaurant we recommended. I literally don't care. I don't care. What is your point of this? You want an apology?
No, it's to tell you that you're wrong and that they think about things in a deeper way or a better way than you do. That's the point. That's the point of opening up a message.
Is that really like, that is the lamest thing ever. Like someone felt the need to tell me that they didn't like Insecure. I was like, I mean, in my opinion, you have terrible taste. What are you hoping to gain by telling me you don't like a show that I like?
I don't know. I think that people think that they're going to like open up a dialogue with you about it. It's like, not about this or not. Like I'm much more likely, like, yeah, there's certain things that like I'll say a thing and somebody doesn't like it and they'll slide into my DMs and like, listen, once a year, maybe I'll have a dialogue with one person about it, but it's not gonna be on a show I recommended that you don't like.
Well, also, and I don't mean like putting it out into the world, like even commenting on Instagram on one of our rec slides, how you felt about a show, didn't love it, loved it. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about you message me personally, you're offended that we don't have the same taste.
Do you remember that girl that went to a bar that we suggested and did an Instagram story at the bar that she did not like it and tagged us?
Yes, tagged the bar too.
Yes, I was like, you're a terrible person.
Shitty person.
Yeah, it's not great.
In these times,
It's not great behavior.
We
girl.
hated it.
We hated it. But speaking of things we didn't hate, so Life in Beth on Hulu, check that out. There is an onslaught of fictional reenactments of stories that are real. What do we call this?
dramatizations.
Sure, that, yeah. So in line with all the things that are coming out, like Anna Delvey right now, We Crashed on Apple TV. Unbelievable. Anne Hathaway and Jared Leto play the founder and wife of the founder of WeWork. If you guys are really interested in like startups and how a company grows, I mean, I think it'd be hard pressed to find somebody our age that does not touched somehow by WeWork, working in a WeWork, friends that work in WeWork, companies that come out of it. There's a phenomenal documentary about WeWork and the giant crash basically of the company and the ousting of the founder. And I found it really fascinating. So I would recommend watching that and then watching We Crashed on Apple TV. It's just sort of like a reimagination or reenactment of facts and things that happened. I think it's phenomenal. So I'm really enjoying that. And then also, if you guys want to watch a short docuseries, Bad Vegan on Netflix is great.
Did you watch it?
Mm-hmm, yeah.
Oh, okay. Everybody's talking about it.
Yeah, it's 4 parts. It's about a restaurant in New York City. This woman who opened up a raw vegan restaurant, basically how she built this huge brand. She became this sort of like superstar in that space. She met this guy and he sort of manipulated her, warped her mind, and she did a lot of really not great financial things. And it sort of just sounds like this guy was like full of shit, manipulating her and swindled millions of dollars out of her, and her businesses went bust. And it's a pretty crazy story. She does star in it. So 4-part series, quick watch. I really liked it. It's super interesting. It's about New York City restaurants.
I feel like everybody is talking about it, and there's just so much fraud content out there lately. Like fraud has never been so hot.
Fraud's very hot right now.
It really is.
It's very reminiscent of the Tinder swindler. If you liked that,
Yeah.
of course you will like this. Again, I try to like withhold. I don't really understand how this happened. It seems a little nuts that like she allowed this to happen. It seems like the writing was really on the wall. I try to withhold judgment because I wasn't in the situation. So you can make your own judgments as to how this happened. But yeah, he swindled like $1.7 million from her, and she lost her businesses, and the whole thing just went crazy. So you guys, I think, will really enjoy it. It's on Netflix. Bad Vegan. Check it out.
I'll watch it, but you know, I'm just like, I might be tapped out on fraud for a minute. We'll see. I think I'm going to watch it.
Okay, I am so excited to tell you all about Talkify. I literally just got off my first call with Talkify to talk about the process and if I would be a good fit for them. And I am so excited about going on this journey. I'm going to tell you a little bit about it. But before I do, we want to thank Talkify for supporting Girls Gotta Eat. You can get 20% off when you become a client at Talkify.com/GGE. Okay, so Talkify is the #1 modern matchmaking service that is designed to help you achieve relationship success. Their trusted compatibility specialists hand select successful and compelling candidates so you can date consciously and productively. So I can't stress enough how I really went into this a little skeptical. And after hearing about the database that they have and talking with my rep, not my matchmaker, this was like an exploratory call, I really feel so excited about this. The matchmakers are going to meet with you to learn about what you're looking for in a partner. Then they'll select and screen potential match candidates for you, do background checks, video interviews, and ask the tough questions that are too awkward for first dates. They'll find out what you're into in all areas of life, you know, your values, what you're into physically, what you want. I mean, she asked me a lot of questions that I just really appreciated on this initial call even, and they're really committed to finding your match. 80% of clients met their person within the first 12 matches. I was just hearing a story when I was on the phone with this woman talking about this other woman who she feels like is her long-term match on the very first date with Talkify, which is so encouraging. And I just feel really excited. So you guys can sign up and just go through the process and see if this is going to be a fit for you. And it really might be. And they are the largest matchmaking service in the US. They have a huge database that could really be what you need, especially if your life is busy and you want someone to handle this part of it for you. So right now, Talkify is offering our listeners 20% off when you become a client at Talkify.com/GGE. That's TAWKIFY.com/GGE for 20% off when you become a client. Okay, so I am so excited for us to stop gatekeeping and tell you about the sneaker brand that we are recently obsessed with, Careabout. It is a sustainable sneaker company. They make the coolest, cutest sneakers in so many different colors. We're going to get into it, but first we want to thank Careabout for their support and for the awesome sneakers they sent us. Careabout has cool, sustainable sneakers loved by surfers and skateboarders and us. They're reimagining classic sneakers with you and the planet in mind. Go to careabout.com/GGE for 15% off your sneakers. Okay, so first of all, sustainable. They are known for their reforestation efforts in the Brazilian rainforest. For every pair of sneakers sold, Careabout plants 2 trees, and they've already planted over 2 million. So there's that, which we love. So many different colors, so many different styles, over 33,000 5-star reviews, super comfy, a celeb favorite, and it's just really just flying off the shelves, and we understand why. One of their most popular styles is the Oka Low. I have those in just a basic white, and I am eyeing the all lilac. The all lilac, so even the sole is like this really pretty light pinkish purple color. I'm just obsessed when like the whole shoe is one color. So those are the ones I'm going to get next. And then I have the Salvis in white and black leather. And these are my true favorites. They fit my foot so well. I have tried on so many different sneakers. I've sent sneakers back that are just too wide. They look too big. This fits my foot so perfectly. And all their shoes, you really can dress up, dress down, wear them with jeans, jean shorts, dresses, whatever you got going on, which we love too.
Yes, I love my picks. I love just like a simple sneaker with a little design element to just like kick up a whole outfit. So I got the Oka Low off-white canvas sneaker. They also come in rose canvas, which I really love. And then they have tons of options for like high top, low top, leather, canvas. So there's so much to choose from for all the different seasons also. So I'm like really liking the selections.
So we're obsessed. Careabout also ships all their sneakers free and fast in the US and offers worldwide shipping and 60-day free returns. And we have a deal for you guys. For a limited time, Girls Gotta Eat listeners can get an exclusive 15% off your pair of Careabout sneakers. Go to careuma.com/GGE to get 15% off. That's careuma.com/GGE for 15% off only for a limited time.
Okay,
guys, we are so excited. We have such a cool topic today, such a cool guest. She is a Stanford and Harvard trained psychiatrist with 25 years of clinical experience. She spent 3 years as the on-campus psychiatrist at Facebook. She is the co-founder of the telehealth startup Brightside and appears regularly on Good Morning America. You've seen her in GQ, Glamour, Business Insider, all kinds of shows. And her first book, Speaking in Thumbs, is out. Please welcome to the show, Dr. Mimi Winsberg.
Thank you so much for having me.
I am so excited. I just got all hyped up on that intro, like, because you've been talking to Raina more, and I'm very excited about this topic. We cannot talk about it enough. So we're so glad to have you.
Thanks. It's great to be here.
So you wrote a book about text message behavior, essentially, and what we can get from people's words inside of the phone. So we would just love to just hear about like how you became interested in this in general and like got into this line of work. You're obviously incredibly smart. You really did it all. Stanford and Harvard. Real overachiever.
I'm going to do both. And then I'm going to work at Facebook. It's casual.
What's funny, because the book actually emerged from kind of a convergence of my professional and personal life. So I had done all this work in digital health to look at what signals we can find about people's behavior from digital tools. And that includes text messages. Can a text message tell if you're depressed or if you're suicidal? And then I was working at Facebook, and here I am working with like the inventors of the algorithm. These are the guys who know how you think. And I got to see how they think. And what they would come to me with questions about was, what does this text message mean? How should I respond to this guy? And so even these people who are really the masters of the digital world were having trouble with their digital communication. So that got me thinking. And then my own marriage came to a close, and I found myself on dating apps chatting with guys. And I would joke that I could make a psychiatric diagnosis in less than 20 texts, because I could see the signal in the messages. And so I thought, well, there has to be a book in this. And so I wrote it for people because I really wanted people to feel armed with these tools. That if you understand your own messages, you can be the master of your destiny, really, in the sense that you can understand who you're talking to and you can understand what a text says about a person.
I just love this. And it's been something we've been discussing a lot lately. For some reason lately with the guys that we've been talking to or dating or hooking up with or whoever, it's just been a lot of talk about text messaging for some reason. And we have this friend, we were at dinner with her when we were in LA, and she's like a text message whisperer. I don't know. It just comes naturally. And she was like telling me what to text. And I consider myself an expert, as someone that's pretty good. And she was like, this is the thing I'm the best at. She was like, I'm not the best girlfriend. Like she has a boyfriend. She's like, no, this is where I thrive. Like the text message, like the early stages. But I just think it's so important. And I hate when people write off texting like, I'm a bad texter. Like I just don't text a lot. It's like, it's such a major form of communication. Like, what do you mean by that? In this day and age, it's such a primary form of communication. It's so important.
That's right. We started texting, like it really took off in 2007, right? When smartphones became...
I remember my first text.
Yeah, exactly. And it became, remember when it became a verb? Oh, I text, it was like...
like T9 word. Yeah.
Right,
that's so funny. Right. You're like so hip. You're like, do you even text?
But right now it's the predominant method of communication, particularly in our romantic relationships. I mean, it is the way we communicate. And it's not just the way we flirt initially. It's also the way we're having serious conversations later in a relationship. I mean, we even break up over text, right? So I think that's one of the messages of the book, is that this is a new language. Our brains have yet to catch up to it, but it's a language you need to speak. Because if you don't, you're going to miss things. And it actually may have effects on how your relationships play out. So I think it's a really important language to understand.
I think I forget how new of a medium this is, because it feels like my whole life has been like dedicated to understanding, like, did I text too much? Not enough. If I put myself out there too much, am I sending too many photos? Did I wait too long between text messages? What does this mean? Everything. I'm just like, what does this mean? Also, Ashley, I just want to say, when you said like people that say they're bad at texting, there's this meme that makes me laugh really hard. It says, do you ever notice that people who are bad at texting are also bad at monogamy? And yeah. I think that we can get into also like what it's like to have a partner that doesn't text you all day long, which I actually kind of think is cool and nice. But I think that anybody can relate to like poring over text messages, screenshotting to all your friends. Mm-hmm. This is the response time. This is what he said, all that. So it's really stressful in these streets.
Right. And I think that it does indicate that we're still learning how to interpret these messages. And that's what I try to do, is give people a guide to, it's not a how-to book in the sense that it doesn't tell you how to conduct your romantic relationships or who's a good guy or who's a bad guy. I mean, because I think there's someone for everyone. But I think it does help to understand how to use this language. And it does help to understand what a person's text says about them and what your text with the person you're texting with says about your relationship. Is it going well or is it not going well? And you can see that in the text. In some ways, the text thread is like the Rosetta Stone of your relationship. You know, you can read into whether there's chemistry, whether there's compatibility. Does it bode well for the future?
I know. Like sometimes I'm texting with somebody. I'm like, I'm going to masturbate to this later. I'm going to pull these up. But it is so true. And
there's actually there's an exchange in my book that someone sent me where this woman says, I want to cut up your text messages and rub them all over my body.
Oh, I'm going to use that.
Okay, that's ours now. We own that.
Well, where should we even start? I mean, I don't know how granular we wanted to go through this. I mean, we have general behavior on our list. I mean, I think top of mind with everybody is this like response time. Like I was even on this is something we've been talking about a lot. I have so many thoughts, and I was even on another podcast recently where the host had asked like, what questions do you have for Ashley? And that was one that she got a few times. Like, I'm talking to a slow texter, like help.
Yes.
You know?
And so you talked about, by the way, just so we can put ourselves in like a bit of a lane, we talked throughout the book, or you wrote throughout the book about like on dating apps in the beginning stage of a relationship and then in a relationship. So maybe we focus on that middle stage where you're just like dating.
Yeah. I think the rules are different as you progress, right? There's the initial stage where you're just getting to know who is the stranger. Then there's the second stage where you're forming intimacy and trust in the relationship. And then I think there's yet a third stage where you're working out conflict over text. But as to response time, you know, I really don't think there is a right response time, and you'll find plenty of written material about this is how long you should wait and this is how you should game it. And I don't think it's about that, because I think people need to be their authentic selves, right? I don't think it works if you're faking being somebody else and then that's really not the person you are. But the response time and the volume of text is a measure of compatibility. So I think of it a little like a seesaw, you know, and you look at the text bubbles on each side of the phone, and they should tip way to one side. It's a bad sign if somebody's text, and there's no response. You know, you want it to kind of even out. And so I think that's a good guide is if you're with somebody who does respond slowly, slow down. If you're with somebody who responds quickly, maybe find some time to have some fast-paced banter with them, and match the length and tone of your messages to your partners too. So if they're giving you a short reply, don't overwhelm them with long ones. And there's some interesting research on this, which is that
to match me.
Well, they should be matching you too. And if they're not matching you, it's probably a sign that you guys aren't a great match. Right. You know what I mean? And so my point is that this is a measure of compatibility.
Yes, I love that.
Measure of chemistry and compatibility. But there's interesting gender differences. So men get really overwhelmed by long text messages. They can handle about 360 characters, not words, but characters, before the message becomes kind of the equivalent of a face tattoo and they run screaming. So they like short. They just can't deal with long. You know, that's what the research shows. Now there are individual guys that probably write volumes, but the typical guy likes a short text message, whereas women tend to write longer.
Well, and I think also with like questions, like you got to do one at a time. Like I feel like if you send a guy 3 things in one bubble, that's a huge no-no. Like I feel like I've had to pace myself with like ask one thing, get answer, ask one thing, you know, if it's like you're trying to figure out plans or whatever it may be.
Sure. And you bring up a good point, which is questions. I think people forget to ask questions when they're texting. And you know, there's good research to show that asking questions makes you more likable, and that the masters of long-term relationship do use more question marks, do use the pronoun you and yours more often, and they're less focused on the I, but they're more like thinking about the other person. So you can look for that in text messages too. If somebody's using a lot of I's, that might not bode as well for a kind of more considerate partner down the road.
I feel like
generous lover.
I feel like when I read back with my text messages I text really fast. So when I am texting somebody, if I go back and read it, I love like crazy rapid fire back and forth. I love to see how funny I can be.
Me too.
I'm trying to beat them to the next joke, and I'm just trying to be so funny. But sometimes I'll read back my text messages and I'll realize that like somebody has asked me 5 or 6 questions about myself and I haven't asked the other person. I'm just being funny and responding to them. So it's a pitfall that I fall into when I'm flirting, when I like reread my stuff.
Yeah. And what you're speaking to is what I call the text love languages. And I'm like you, I love the rapid fire, funny banter. And I call that riffing, and what that is you've kind of set aside time in the day just to chat with this person and you're giving them your 100% attention. Your brain is working hard when you're doing that, right? You're completely engaged in the conversation. Yeah. And I think that's a measure of attention and how much you like somebody. You're not going to do that for somebody if you don't like them. So that's a love language in itself. Other people might prefer, the frequent check-ins during the day, updates. This is a picture of what I'm having for lunch. Here's the meeting. I just, giving these kinds of updates through the day. And that's not my style of texting, but some people like that frequent check-in.
I mean, this is what I've been running into recently. Like, is this person that doesn't want to, not one singular person, just someone that doesn't want to go back and forth with me and doesn't want to respond quickly and have banter. Like, I don't want it. And it turns me off and we like lose momentum, especially with someone who maybe they don't live in the same city or you just haven't seen them in a while. Like, that's how you build momentum to me between seeing each other. And it doesn't need to be all day, every day. But when I'm texting somebody and I say something flirty, especially, or funny, especially, and they don't respond to me for 2 hours, I'm just kind of turned off. And I feel rejected is kind of a big word. It's not that I'm like, oh, they don't like me, but it feels a little bit like that. And they're
not speaking your love language, basically.
Yeah.
And I think that's the key here is it's a measure of
also, they might just not be into me too. Like, it could be
Maybe, but probably they have a different style. It's like being in a relationship with somebody who, cleans the house and does the laundry, but doesn't like having passionate sex. It's like they're nice, but it's not working for you. And so I think that's a measure of text love language, and that's a subject I discuss in the book. Is that there are 5 text love languages, and you have to find somebody who speaks your language or who's willing to anyway.
Okay, well, let's talk about what the 5 are because I'm so anxious to see which of them I am.
Yeah. Well, so the first is just actually compliments, so it's like the words of Gary Chapman's words of affirmations that some people like to get a lot of compliments over text. And the second is what we talked about, riffing, where you're doing that rapid back and forth, funny kind of banter. And the third would be spoon feeding, which is what I was referring to as, and these are words I've made up, but spoon feeding, where you're giving the person updates through the day. Here's my dog chasing the ball, and constantly updating your partner as to what you're doing. And then nudging is the fourth one, where you are maybe giving them little reminders or check-ins that you're thinking about them and you're thinking about what they're going through. And the last one is nooking, which is, maybe more the equivalent of sexting or sort of romantic chit chat over text, but much more physical in its nature.
Well, thanks for explaining all those. We love that. We definitely want to get into those more in depth, but I still just have to ask, like, don't you feel like it can be an indicator of someone that just is not that interested? Like that's why they're taking so long to respond, or that's why they're only checking in every couple of days just to make sure you're still on their bench. Like they just don't.
For sure. I mean, I think it depends. Again, this is, we need to kind of distinguish, is this at the very beginning of a relationship, or is this once you know that this is somebody who actually is into you and is, that you're in a relationship with? And so I think you need to distinguish between those two. But absolutely, the level of attention that we pay to each other is a reflection of how we feel about our relationships. Mm-hmm. And our brains are really good at picking up on this in person. If you're at a bar chatting with somebody, you can tell if they're into you by how they're looking at you, their body language, all kinds of things. And over text, we have to use different clues to understand if somebody's into us. And that's part of what I get into in the book, is trying to recognize that.
A main question that we see come up a lot and that we have ourselves is this, let's say, early stages situation that you may have, not in a committed exclusive relationship or whatever it may be. And it's like, you are really enjoying them in person. You have the banter, you have the chemistry, but it like falls apart when the texting. And so I think it's hard for people to reconcile. Like, we're great in person, the sex is great, we laugh, we have fun, but I want to continue this via text and they're not matching my energy. Is that solvable? Is that a solvable problem? Yeah. And you don't want to break up with somebody because they can't,
Right. Gotcha. Well, and I think that does get into communication about needs, right? Is it is it possible to explain to the person, hey, this is important to me, and can they do this? Or can they reassure you that, no, I'm not good at this, but it doesn't change the way I feel about you, and so, no relationship is going to be 100% perfect. We have to make some compromise somewhere. And that could either be a deal breaker for you or not. For me, I like that riffing. And so it's tricky if somebody doesn't like to riff. It's kind of a requirement.
What was the type of love language you called it where somebody's like checking in all day with like a message?
The spoon feeding.
So to me, like, I feel like for me, if I'm going to be in a relationship with somebody, I need to explain to them early on how much I hate that and don't like it. I like to be fully focused on what I'm doing.
Do not send a picture of your lunch or your dog.
Not in the middle of the day. So for me, like
we're busy. We're
somebody.
busy.
Ashley,
Right?
I feel like Ashley and I, when we're together, we're like really in it. We don't have the kind of work environment where we like kind of work. I'm not going to respond to you. My friends know I don't respond to them all day long. When Ashley and I are on tour, I'm not going to call you after we get off stage. I'm just not going to do it. I need somebody to understand it's not that I don't like them. It's not that I'm not into them. I don't have the energy. I'm focused on work. And I think that if you communicate that early on, that this doesn't mean I don't like you, because I really like to riff. Ashley sees my face when like a guy like texts me and lights up and I'm just in it and I like can't stop. But for me, I try to reserve that for like the evening times. Because otherwise you're not going to get my attention and I ignore people all day. So I think that like, for me, like you were saying, people that don't like message you back, for me, like if you need that for me all day long, I'm probably not your girl because I'm not going to do that with you all day long. But if you understand it doesn't mean that I don't like you, then that's fine. We're great.
Yeah, no, and I think these are conversations to have into a relationship about how to meet each other's needs, right?
What was the nudger again?
Well, nudging is more, when somebody's asking you, like, how did that meeting go?
Okay.
Questions about your day or checking in or sending somebody articles like, oh, here's this New York Times article. Oh, here, check this video out. And, and so it's that kind of level of communication, which some people love, right? And others don't like as much.
Yeah. I think it's all good. Like, I love that somebody would check in and send me like an article or something, but as long as you know that I'm not going to respond for like 5 hours.
Right.
Well, I like that. I feel like there's a parallel between the actual love languages where you're doing a bunch of them at once, especially if you're like really in it with somebody. Like we're sexting, we're texting, we are showing pictures of our lunch and our dogs. Like it's kind of, when you're really in it, it's a lot of them going on at once, which I'm here for. Like I want it.
Well, the parallel, of course, is this is based on Gary Chapman's love languages that I think you guys probably are familiar with, but same thing. We use all of them in our lives. It's just that we tend to, as individuals, emphasize one or two as being more important and things that we want to get from our partner and not something that we want to have to rely on friends for.
Yeah. I mean, at least for me, though, I feel like an all night long text sesh. I like it.
Yeah.
I like a lot of banter. And I think Ashley and I are so funny. And I want you to think that I'm funny.
I made this axis. I drew this thing.
I love it. I love graphs. Show me the graph.
Stop. I can't
look at your axis.
No, I was wondering what Mimi would think of this. So I feel like
I want to see it.
I feel like there's an axis. One side is not into you all the way up to into you. And then the other side is essentially text behavior, whether it's intentional or it's not intentional.
Right.
And so you fall into like 4 graphs where if someone's into you and it's not intentional, i.e. it's their natural behavior, that's just their text love language at work and it doesn't match yours, but it doesn't mean they're not into you. They're just like what you might call a bad texter, but they're just utilizing their own. And then
So I would break it down into interest and skill. So one axis is interest and one axis is skill. And you can have somebody who's highly interested but low skill and another person who's highly interested and high skill and then low, so forth. But
you want to show her your little picture?
Well, and then so if somebody was really into you, high interest and high skill, that means they're like trying to, to me, that meant they're like trying to like, okay, yeah. You're right. I messed my own thing up, but then no interest and no skill means they just.
Well, that's a non-starter. That's a non-starter, right?
And then low interest and high skill means they're intentionally trying to show you they don't like you. But anyway, here's my little graph.
Okay, that's good. That's good. I bring up a couple of graphs like that, metaphorical graphs like that in the book. And one is chemistry versus compatibility. So, chemistry, of course, is that spark and how easy it feels to communicate with somebody at first. And, do you have good physical chemistry and so forth? And then compatibility is how easy is it to spend a weekend together? How do your life values align and so forth? And you can definitely have a relationship with high chemistry and low compatibility. And that's going to be the smoking hot, not very long lasting relationship.
Yeah,
right?
I slept with him.
And then you can have the high compatibility, low chemistry, which feels a little more like friendship. And you're like, oh, can I make this work? You know, he's such a good guy.
We know him
get
too.
along so well, right?
Yeah, we had sex in the missionary position only.
I don't have sex with that guy, but we're friends.
And then, of course, the ideal is both. And I think the second graph like that is this idea of intimacy and independence. So some people like a very intimate relationship, but that doesn't mean they want to be joined at the hip and doing everything together. Like I personally like a lot of intimacy, but then also a lot of independence where we can each do our own thing. And some people might want a totally dependent relationship with not a lot of intimacy where you're together all the time, but you're not actually really connecting at a deep level.
For sure.
Okay. So like, I would love to move on to the part of like what we can suss out from people's text messages. So the words they say and how we can figure out what they mean. Cause like I was saying, when I look back at my own, I'm like, I could be asking more questions. Does this make me look like a self-centered person that I'm sitting here just answering all of your questions?
So early on, if you're trying to decide, is this person even worth going out on a first date with, or maybe a second date? It's really good to pay attention to their text messages and to treat the text as a little bit of an interview. You know, this is where you can find out some things about the person that you might not be able to find out in other ways. And one of the things I talk about is how to identify big 5 personality factors. And the big 5 is a personality inventory that tends to be very stable over a person's lifetime. And it will determine things like, are you extroverted? Are you introverted? You know, how open are you to new experience versus kind of more liking things predictable? And then are you conscientious? Are you going to do what you say you're going to do? Are you agreeable? Do you like to go with the flow, or are you a little more contrarian? And then how neurotic are you? You know, which was going to predict like how uptight or sort of difficult you're going to be to get along with in the long run in a relationship. Turns out our words and even our punctuation in text messages will all say things about our big 5 personality factors. And so it's pretty cool to look at early text messages and be able to make some good educated guesses about what this person's going to really be like when you get to know them and they're not just on their best behavior.
Hold on. So introvert versus extrovert.
Yeah.
Agreeable versus a contrarian. Neuroses.
Conscientious, which is like, how much are you going to do what you say you're going to do?
And then what's the 5th I'm missing?
And the 5th one that you didn't is openness to experience. So, you know, are you like up for adventure, novelty seeking, that kind of thing? Yeah.
The thing that's like, I find myself in these situations is like, I like to know what's going on. I like to know what the plan is. Like our lives are busy. Though.
Yeah. See, I think what you're after there is somebody who's conscientious, because a conscientious person is going to be really clear about what their plan is, and they're going to follow through on it, and they're not going to be flaky. So you want to look for conscientiousness. And, you know, people who aren't conscientious are going to use a lot of future tense, like will, and they're going to use cognitive discrepancies, like lots of coulda, shoulda, wouldas in their texts early on. You want to avoid the person who uses lots of coulda, shoulda, woulda.
Okay.
Or 100%. Will, or you want somebody who can be more firm in and commit to things, not commit to a long-term relationship, but commit to following through on their actions.
To showing up.
Yeah.
Okay. So let's talk about tells for all of these.
Yeah. Well, extroverts, not surprisingly, use words more like drinks, restaurant, dancing, but they'll always use the word, they'll also use the word mouth and other more often, you know, whereas introverts tend to use more emojis. Like extroverts don't use as many emojis. They'll use thumbs up, winking face, smiley face, but introverts will use more obscure emojis. And neurotic people are going to use some of those dramatic faced emojis, like the loudly crying face, or the like, I don't even know what some of these are called, weary face, wailing face. I don't know. But those, you know, Edward Munch, the scream face, that's kind of maybe a sign you're dealing with somebody a little bit more neurotic.
My emojis are dramatic. The mouth, it's like the squiggly and it's like, like
the derpiness face.
Yeah. I use it all the time. Wait, this is so funny because I just said the other day, our kids these days not using emojis anymore because this guy I've been talking to is a little younger than me, and he uses 0 emojis. None. What? Never seen emojis.
That's my kind of guy. I don't use emojis either. I'm cute. Like, use your words. Don't give me these canned emojis.
I don't know. I think I just feel like they're so expressive because I like that face. That face is like, I don't know what the fuck is going on.
It makes you laugh, but you think it's an extroverted person uses no emojis?
Not no emojis.
Well,
they just use them. They use not no. Just, averages would say that introverts use them more than extroverts do.
Maybe just kids these days aren't using them as much.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then I think, the kinds of emojis we use too, like, so agreeable people will use hearts in all of their forms. And so, because they're trying to get along, right? They're trying to show you like, everything's good here. Punctuation's kind of interesting too. I mean, what about these people that put periods at the end of every sentence?
It's crazy.
So to me, it's like, it's like my dad, but that's like a dad. So it's like, do we even count him? He's like 70.
That's probably, that's a dad thing.
But then I have a girlfriend she's that, like, I had to learn that she does not seem happy on text, and it's what it is. And that's her style. And it is periods, and it is no emojis. You'd think she was pissed, and she's not, you know what I mean?
But then what about the person that uses all the exclamation points, that
we can't,
but that's me. Okay. Let's talk about me.
Too many exclamation points to me. It's
you don't do too many.
It's a little bit of pay attention. There's a little pay attention to me in there. Maybe that's what you're after, but I think that can be a sign of, if overused, could be a sign of a little bit of narcissism or insecurity.
Great. Great. No, I don't think anybody would look at my text messages and think that I'm overused. Also, Ashley has wheeled me back from too many exclamation points.
I mean, professional emails. I'm like, Rita, we can't. All caps?
All caps can be a little bit off-putting sometimes, but anything just use intermittently, no big deal. I think when you start to see a certain tendency, the person who's putting lots of ellipses in their text, the ... everything is ... Well, that's like a little more flirty, don't want to be pinned down, open to possibility, but don't want to be pinned down, right? So I give people clues as to what some of this punctuation can mean about the person they're texting with early on, before you have other clues to go off.
What are some other tells early? So you say you can get on a dating app and in 20 exchanges,
get a pretty good sense of what somebody's personality is and what they're looking for too. And, and I think the way to do that is you that's not just going to happen on its own. So I give people tools for what to do in order to extract that information. And that includes things like, one, asking questions, of course, but two, mirroring. The more you mirror somebody's style, the more that's going to allow them to be more like themselves. And so, you do want to try to draw people out using techniques like mirroring. And then I give people some red flags to look for too early on, because I think we've all read a lot about attachment style, anxious attachment and avoidant attachment. And it's good to be able to recognize that, right? And so, because you don't really want to end up in a situation where somebody's ghosting you, or so you get too involved with somebody and then it turns out they really have a dysfunctional attachment style. Mm-hmm. So some of the early signs of that are things like what I call instamacy, too much, too soon. Mm. It seems like the person's trying to establish the fact that you've known each other forever right away. And maybe they're doing some love bombing or giving you way too much information. But I think that those are typically signs of a less secure attachment. And controlling behavior early on too can be another sign of not so secure attachment. So the person who doesn't even ask you, well, do you want to meet? They just tell you we're meeting, versus presuming that it's something you might have a choice in.
Yeah. I mean, I think that words are so important. And when I see even a prompt on a dating app that feels like,
you better impress me.
You better, yeah. It feels like there's a demand in your prompts. Like I'm Xing out immediately. Like this is so telling. Like words matter. You chose these words,
Absolutely.
Like I need you to be this and that.
100% agree. And that is usually born out of a sense of fear and insecurity, right? Mm-hmm. And there's an attempt to control the situation too soon.
What about somebody who on a dating app early on, like Ashley and I talk about this a lot. Ashley and I can make fun of ourselves and each other and our friends all day long, but I really don't like it with a new person. I don't like feeling like I'm nagged. So I'm curious if you have any insights into if the person sort of opens up with a nag or they nag you really soon, do you feel like that's a bad sign?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. That's controlling behavior. It's putting you down to get the upper hand. And it's something I talk quite a bit about in Speaking in Thumbs as well, is this idea of a power gradient and how you can recognize power gradient in text conversations. Because oftentimes one person sort of has the upper hand in a relationship or in a conversation. And learning what the language of power is pretty important. In a good relationship, that power shifts back and forth, and that's exciting and that's fun, right? You know, your turn, my turn, and there's not a clear individual who's controlling the whole thing. But I think that there is a very recognizable language of power. And when a guy is putting you down in order to make you feel insecure and get the upper hand, bad sign.
Yeah, and that's coming from people. We'd love to be roasted. Like it's such a turn on for me that like, someone would make fun of me when it feels like we've already gotten to know each other a tiny bit. Like
right.
The neg right out of the gate is such a red flag.
It's also interesting to look at people's stress responses over text too, right? And sometimes you can see evidence of that really early on in interactions where they get stressed by just a small miscommunication or not knowing something, you know, and that's going to be predictive of what that person's like to be in a long-term relationship with too.
Mm-hmm. What about you mentioned oversharing? What do you find that is in, like, when somebody starts to just give me like too much information, I feel a little turned off by it, but I'm wondering like what the psychology behind that is.
That's usually an anxious attachment style, you know, and so they're trying to get too close too quickly.
Is that a manipulation tactic or some people are just being nerds?
No, I don't really. I think rarely these things are outward manipulative. I think it's just people sort of showing their true colors, you know, and that this stuff does kind of filter through. And that's one of the premises of the book is that our text messages are peepholes into our psyche, you know, and that there's only so much we can control. We're going to be ourselves in the way we communicate. And so it's an opportunity to see who this person is and get more specific about knowing yourself, knowing what kind of person you want to be with and not wasting your time.
It is so true. Mm-hmm. It's just about finding somebody who kind of like matches your energy. I just like,
totally.
I'm a weird person. I just want somebody to match my weirdness, my brand of weirdness. And some of the things we're talking about, like corniness or oversharing, people might love that. Some people really
100%.
Some people step up to the plate for negging and they love it. And that's what their like vibes. I hate it. Nothing will make me stop talking to you faster. So I think it is just so much about finding somebody that like matches your style and not all of it is so insidious. I do think people can be too charming and you got to look out for those people too a little bit.
Yeah. It's interesting too, like gender differences, how those play out. I mean, in general, women feel like if there's a lot of texting going on in a relationship, things are going really well. And men think, okay, if there's not a lot of texting going on in the relationship, things are going really well.
What?
So therein lies a little bit of a rub, right?
I must think that our relationships are going terrible because you will never stop getting text messages to me after 5 p.m.
The people that I'm talking to must think we're going great because they are not texting me enough. So I guess they think we're doing great.
Yeah, I think we just are wired differently for communication, right? We will emphasize communication. Men maybe underemphasize communication.
Okay, so the communication thing actually reframes it for me better because I'm thinking like just like if somebody's not texting you back, they don't like you. That's just how I assume. Like if a man is like, she's not texting me, it must be going great. Like why would a man think that?
Well, because he thinks that there's no need for communication. So everything's going great. You know, we're not having to talk.
This is just a lot to handle. And I mean,
it's so funny. Before we move on from dating apps, I just want to ask, like, I want to wrap it up. Is there any other like red flag tells from like the beginning? You haven't even met the person. Like,
well, lying. I mean, nobody wants to be with a liar.
Yeah,
right?
I want to talk about lies.
I give people tools to recognize deception. And I'd say that a couple things that aren't always predictive of lying, but they're associated with it. And that's when you're dropping the first person pronoun a lot. So you drop the I, and basically liars will do this to distance themselves from the statement. I don't know if you guys watch Tinder Swindler, but
I've been thinking about it this whole time.
He had it, you know, kept flashing up his text messages, and it's like he was he had a lot of the signs of deception that I outline in the book.
Give me an example of how they would remove the I.
You know, it's that sort of shorthand way of speaking of like running late instead of I'm running late. But I mean, we'll do that quickly when we're in a hurry. But when it's done kind of repeatedly in an explanation, it's often because the person's trying to emotionally distance from the statement because it's actually not true. The other thing they might do is put in way too much detail or not enough detail, but the detail lacks kind of an emotional feeling. It's very factual versus emotional. So it's this sort of text that ends up being devoid of person and emotion. And that's often an indication of a lie. Other tells can be too much of the, to be honest, or, like putting in a lot of those sorts of phrases. Those liars tend to do that as well. Again, these things aren't true across the board, but I think if you're wondering over time, is this person really being honest with me? I do give you some of the tools to spot liars. And these are tools that are, used by the FBI.
Okay. No, I was really glad I want to talk about liars. I also want to talk about, here's something I really don't like. And I'm wondering if you guys if you have any feedback. I don't like when somebody uses my name in a text message repeatedly. It creeps me out. I don't like it. Especially, I don't know how.
It feels very salesy, doesn't it? It's like a sales technique.
Yes, there's
salesmen do that.
Somebody, when we have not met and somebody's like, well, Raina, I really don't like it. There's somebody who I text with quite often who uses my name in sentences a lot. And I've said to him, I don't like it. Please stop. I really hate it. But before we've met, Raina, how's your day going? I hate it.
Yes.
It really creeps me out. So what is that?
Well, I think some people have been trained to use names, like I said, as a way to bond or a sales technique. It definitely can be overused, or maybe they're texting with a lot of people and they're just trying to keep them all straight.
Oh my God.
I don't know. But
he's like, this is Raina.
I just like it's trying too hard in my mind. It feels like
it's not
the
genuine.
Conversation, it feels not natural. It feels not natural.
It feels like it's designed to be genuine. Like the person I called out for this was like, I've trained myself to, he said, I've trained myself to do this because it sounds a little more like I'm making an effort. And I'm like, don't ever stop using my name. I hate it.
Yeah.
I mean, my favorite thing is if I say something ridiculous and someone goes, Ashley, you know what I mean? That's when I like it.
Yeah. Right.
I totally get what you mean. It's very cringe.
Hey, Ashley, how's your day going?
Well, but that's also though, in particular, it feels fine for a first text from a person from an app or something like that.
Yes, first text.
I like my name if it's the first text you're sending me after we've exchanged numbers, on an app or something. Hey, Ashley, yeah,
of course.
I feel like I don't ever want to hear my name.
How often it's happening. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think to your point, Raina, that people I just did it right there.
I know. I was like, oh no,
I liked it. I like it sometimes.
No, I think people have trained themselves to do that. They've trained themselves to use names over and over again as a way to bond. And it may be because they're feeling less confident about their ability to bond in other ways, whereas a joke is going to go way farther in terms of bonding. Some kind of affiliate of humor is going to do way more than using a person's name.
That totally tracks.
Some people don't joke.
Yeah. Some people
don't. Such a big thing is the first text post date. And we like it that night. I
like it on my way out the door. I want you to be looking at my ass, sending me a text message.
Yeah.
But in terms of how fast, what to say.
To me, we went out, we had a great time. If we both had a great time, I don't think it should be 2 days, but let's talk about it.
Often, don't you think it's often an indication of how great a time you had? I think if you had a really great time, most people feel inclined to text sooner, and there's no reason to wait. And I don't think women should feel like they have to wait if they haven't heard from the guy. There's no gender rules here about who goes first.
Yeah, I think it's nice to just follow up with a thank you or whatever. Someone did that for me recently and I felt really touched by it. I had sort of gone out of my way to see somebody. And as soon as I left, I was like, I wonder when I'll hear from them. And I got a text right away. And I had made a huge effort to see this person. So I thought it was really appreciated.
Yeah. And the truth is, if you've had a really great time, there's kind of no doubt in either person's mind if you had a good click, right? And so getting that first text is going to feel very natural.
I totally agree. And I love an emphatic, if I had fun, I'll send a text message. And if I enjoyed you or you did something nice for me, I'll say thank you. And I like an exclamation point and something flirty. And if the person doesn't match that or send that back, that's okay. I don't feel embarrassed. I feel like I was being authentic to myself in the moment.
And you're tapping into something that I think is so universal, which is this anxiety of not getting communication back. That's something we can all relate to, is what to do when you haven't heard from somebody that you expected to hear from. And, part of what I hope to do with the book is take some of the anxiety out of that, and kind of arm you with some of the tools to both understand the person you're with, but also to understand communication patterns and how to set up the ones that you want to have in your relationship. If this is somebody who doesn't communicate in a way that reduces your anxiety, probably not a good long-term partner for you.
That's the thing I think people struggle with, but it's just texting. How can, and it's, I don't know, I had a girlfriend that was dating this guy and he didn't text her all through the week. Like it was weekends only. They didn't hang out during the week. And she just had kind of convinced herself like he's busy and he's got work. And we just kind of, I'm like,
no, it sounds like boundaries to me, you know,
he had like another girlfriend, like he had like a wife or some shit. Like it was very like the writing was on the wall for me, I thought, but
right. Well, people find all kinds of ways to rationalize something that they want. Mm-hmm. But, you know, I think really if you do care about somebody and you are kind of building a long-term relationship, obviously there are good constructive techniques to use in communication. And those would include, you know, being curious, asking questions, being really patient with the other person, trying to be understanding, trying to accept them for who they are. And these are the kinds of practices that play into our communications from the start of a relationship. And one of the things that I talk about in the book is the way you can go back and look at your text threads with somebody that you've been involved with, maybe during the relationship, maybe after the relationship has ended, but you can go back and look. And that text thread is kind of the electronic medical record of your relationship. Like you can see the inflection points. You can see where things started to deepen or get more involved. And you can see where maybe you started to have trouble. And I think it's really helpful to go back and do this, especially after a relationship's demise, where you may want to learn, okay, what lessons can I take away from this and bring into my next relationship? And having that written record, it can be useful to see, okay, this is what went wrong. We weren't communicating during the week in your friend's instance. I want more transparency in my future relationships.
Yeah. Sometimes I think we're dating somebody. I think everybody can relate to that feeling of like you send the text message and like 10 minutes go by, 15 minutes go by, no response, 20 minutes, you're totally chill. And within an hour, it's this all consuming, like, is this person going to message me back? Like what I said was so funny or so interesting, or I just asked you a question and it's so all consuming sometimes. And then you go back and reread text message with somebody, you pull the screen over to see the timestamps and you're like, but, okay, so maybe this person like wasn't that into me and that wasn't responding. And I'm always responding in a timely manner and they're not. And so you had mentioned before, like how to deal with that. Do you have like specific language that you think is like really great?
It's two things. One is looking at yourself honestly and saying, okay, am I too anxious here? You know, and I'm not saying that's the case, but I think it is worth looking at your own attachment style. And if you do tend to be anxiously attached, that's something you have to work on your own. But I think if there's a realistic expectation of response and, you know, this person is chronically under meeting that, you know what I mean, making you wait too long, they're either sort of trying to get the upper hand in a controlling way, or they're just not a communicative enough partner for you. And I think it's time to think long and hard about whether this is really the right partner for you, especially if you've brought it up with them and said, you know, I could use a little more reassurance here. Just send me a good night text. That's all I need. Not complicated, not hard to do. Give me that little bit of reassurance.
I think what people run into also is like noticing when it changes from the like honeymoon phase to that's trouble, and you know, and so, and then again, like we talked about at the beginning, like you almost feel silly to bring it up because you're like, your texting has changed. Like it sounds crazy coming out of your mouth, but it's not. Like
it's not. And it's almost the canary in the coal mine. You know, it can be the most sensitive barometer of how things are going. And so that's why I think looking for those inflection points in the text is important. Is this person pulling away? Are things deepening? You know, are we having more disagreement or conflict? And you can actively use that to right things in your relationship. You know what I mean? If you notice that there's a reflection in your written communication of something going awry, that can be an opportunity to make a change in your relationship that will help things get back on course.
You should be with somebody that you feel comfortable bringing this stuff up and openly communicating with them and you trust them. It's not crazy to say like, hey, it used to kind of be like this and I've noticed a shift. Like, is everything we cool? Is anything going on we can talk about? Like, it just doesn't.
No, I'm so glad you brought it up because I think that like we always say, like, you know, your person's texting style and like you can try to explain it to a friend and be like, he didn't text me back all day. And your friend's like, just relax. It's not a big deal. But you're like, but I know what our text style is like. And I know what they're like. And I mean, I can tell first thing in the morning if Ashley like got a good night's sleep. She had bad nightmares. She's in a bad mood. I can just tell. I can tell immediately. And I know I'll just wait it out for like an hour or two. And then she'll be like, I'm feeling really anxious today. And vice versa. Like I wake up and I'm just like business. Like I had to do this thing thing the other day. I was very stressed out about filming this thing. And like, she was trying to joke with me and I kept being like, can you just answer me for this thing? I'm just stressed out. And I finally just said to her, like, I'll be like more fun after this. But I think it's important to point out, like, you're not crazy if you think that somebody's text message style has changed, because you know better than anybody what someone else's text style is like.
No, absolutely. Absolutely. I couldn't agree with that more. And that's part of what I teach people to do in the book, is to go back, look at those text exchanges, look for the inflection points. Even maybe after the relationship's over, you can see, okay, where did I miss something? How do I reconstruct this so that I understand better what the arc was and how do I do this differently next time?
And again, of course, sometimes it's not a huge deal. You just know I'm in a bad mood, or like it goes back to normal shortly thereafter. I think it's like the long,
you don't want to overcorrect.
Pattern. Yes.
You don't want to overcorrect. It's more larger trends. Yeah.
Yeah. Cause sometimes people are busy or they are in a bad mood. It has nothing to do with you. Totally. I feel like it's when you feel like it's happening a lot and it's a pattern or a new normal.
Right. It's true. I do have to bring myself back to center and say, like, sometimes you're just off for a few hours. Like you, like sometimes you and your partner, like maybe this is just like a bad day, an off day. Yeah. I'm laughing because I was dating somebody very casually years ago. We were just sleeping together. And there was like a very clear and instantaneous shift in his vibe and the way he was texting me. And it's just so fun. We're friends now. He told me I babed too soon.
Oh yeah.
I always say, and I babed too soon. He said that I babed too soon. You can look back into the text message and I did refer to him as like babe one night.
Oh my God.
And like, that was the inflection point where he was like, I don't want this. Mm-hmm. And in my defense, I was drunk and trying to go over there and have sex. So I wasn't trying to like set up a nice dinner. It was 11 o'clock at night. In my defense.
Yeah, well, it is. And so it does sometimes come down to word choice and the names of affection we call each other. And when those are introduced, right, this stuff ends up being kind of important for people.
Can we talk about these landmines?
Yeah. So you and I, when we were on the phone, we talked before we did the interview, and we talked about just sort of like when you're in the text message conversation with somebody and all of a sudden it's like a fight and you're like, how did this happen? Like, how did we spiral into this? And I think that so much can be misinterpreted via text. So we talked about sort of like landmines to avoid. And
yeah. And I have a whole chapter devoted to that called toxic texting. And, you know, what I talk about here are good practices and bad practices. And a lot of this research is drawn from real leaders in the couples therapy space, like John Gottman. And he's famous. John Gottman runs the Love Lab, and he's famous for being able to analyze just a very, very small snippet of a couple's conversation and predict with remarkable accuracy whether that couple is going to get divorced in 7 years or divorced in 20 years, right? Some of us would prefer not to know. But basically, you know, it comes down to the techniques we use in conversation. And he talks about the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse. These are criticism, contempt, defensiveness, and stonewalling. Stonewalling is where you like put your fingers in your ears and you're like, la, 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 I don't hear you, you know? So basically, you know, using criticism, being contemptuous towards your partner, again, getting defensive when they call you out on something or pretending you don't hear them. These are all really bad signs. And they manifest in text, right? You can see the stuff in text messages just as easily as you can see it in verbal conversation. Instead, I give people 4 good practices to use, which are, you know, curiosity, ask questions, practice acceptance of the person, you know, don't try to have them be somebody that they're not. Again, things that are very intuitive, but empathy and respect. Like, we shouldn't have to remind ourselves to do these things, but sometimes we do. And so again, you can look at your text conversations and see, am I employing good practices or bad practices here? And this is going to very often dictate the course of a fight and whether it'll come to a good resolution or whether it will fester and not resolve.
I mean, do you think people shouldn't be fighting via text? I mean, Rain and I, if things start to get a little tense, she'll usually call me on the phone.
Yeah.
I call Ashley immediately.
Because I'll do a little more via text. I know we need to talk. I'm not avoiding it. Like, but I will go a little harder. Yeah. And then she's like, nope,
I won't do it. I cut it off because I know that I know how, but I mean, this is like my business partner, my best friend, my family. So I know exactly how we will spiral out of control. And yes, we will go via text all day and I can't do it. I've gotten better with other people also. I'm just, nobody's going to do it with me. I'm not going to spiral all day long on a text message thread where we misinterpret each other and things get lost in tone. I'd rather pick up
misinterpreting.
the phone.
Yeah.
Right. So I think there's pros and cons. I think with the text, there's a lot of opportunity for misinterpretation because we don't have the voice cues, the eye contact. You can't like in a romantic situation, you can't hold the person's hand or give them a hug or, do the reassuring things you do if you're in person. The benefit of having some discussions, let's just say heated discussions over text, is that you can pause and, think before you reply, maybe show it to somebody and say, okay, well, how do you, how can I be more measured in my response and not be quite as reactive as you might be in person? So I think there are pros and cons.
Yeah, if you do that, good.
Yeah,
but
right,
you're just
right. If you're just typing, no, bad for sure, because you're missing the cues to see how that's making the person
you have to
feel.
not text when you're feeling anger.
Absolutely,
in your gut. I'm talking to myself here.
Yeah, no, and I think the other thing you need to do is you need to read that text actually aloud and think about how it's going to sound when that other person's reading it, not just how it sounds 100%. In your own head. Because we're very much in our own heads when we're texting, you know what I mean? And you need to see it objectively. How's this going to read? By reading it aloud, it can sometimes make it seem a little harsher than you actually intended it to be.
Yeah.
And I kind of wanted to include in the book like a sidebar of 10 subjects you shouldn't have over text, 10 conversations you shouldn't have over text. Of course, I didn't put that in, but there probably are things that just need to be done in person.
Yeah, I think you should think about who you're dealing with and what you're like as well and what the situation calls for. So
yeah.
I have a friend in particular that I know that like if we get, I'm not talking about Ashley at all, but if we get in these long text message conversations, she's just going to latch on to whatever I say and keep arguing with me and she'll find something in every single text that she doesn't like and she will latch onto it and have a fight. And at some point you have to say stop and I'm not doing this anymore. And so that's a person I will get on the phone with. If it is like just something really that can be taken out of context, yes. If it's something that I need a little more time to think about, of course, I will put it in writing. I think I'm a huge fan of the email, But I think if it's a really heated argument, I would rather have it on the phone. I don't want to do it via text message.
Or in person too. Yeah. So much of our conversations and our communication is happening asynchronously now. And that this has tremendous impact on the quality of our lives, that we feel this like at our core. We feel the quality of our relationships as reflected through our asynchronous communication, and that having better asynchronous communication and better communication practices in general is going to seriously enhance the quality of our lives. We just will feel better. And so that's part of why I wrote the book, is to kind of level that up, to get people to level it up, because I know it's such a source of anxiety and it's such a source of bad feeling for people. And they're, ultimately these tools should be there to make us feel better, not worse. Right.
Mm-hmm. This was really amazing and interesting. And I have read your book and I loved it. I thought it was really just tons of advice and examples. So I guess tell people where they can find the book, your website, anything else so that they can find you.
Sure. Yeah. No, I think one really fun thing about the book is just that it is, as you said, it's rife with screenshots. So you get to see all these people's text messages and commentary on it. And it's often not the experience we have of looking over somebody else's shoulder to see their text, and I show my text as well. You can buy the book at your local bookstores, on Amazon, through any online retailer. It's called Speaking in Thumbs. My website is drwinsberg.com, drwinsberg.com, and there's information on the book there as well. And you can follow me on Twitter at Winsberg, on Instagram at Text Whisperer. And
I love it.
Would love to hear what people think of the book. So keep the feedback coming.
Okay, great. Thank you so much. It was so great getting to talk to you.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks for having me.
And you guys know where to find us. Everything is at girlsgottaeatpodcast.com. You can get merchandise and get tickets to shows where we still have tickets left. And you can follow us on Instagram at Girls Gotta Eat Podcast. I am Ash Hess. Raina is Raina.Greenberg, and girls_gotta eat on Twitter. And we will see you next week. We got a hot one.
We're going to see you this week also. Have a good week, guys.
Bye.